Are people hearing my voice? Yay, I got a yes. Good. Hi, everyone. I would like to say, how are you? But it's sort of a not quite a back and forth conversation exactly. Yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this and talk today about how teams can implement cross training programs to help their teams and skaters be successful. Yeah, so without further ado, I think we'll just kind of dive into it. Real quick, this is kind of what I promised we would talk about, so I will try to make sure that we do so. So the why of cross-training, maybe the people who are in this room are already the type of people who are, I'm preaching to the choir, but sometimes it's good to have extra kind of layers of information, ammunition, I call it, for getting people to get on board with your vision. So we'll talk about several reasons why cross-training is important. We will talk about the training pyramid, get back to that. Periodization basics, that's kind of fancy way for saying how do you plan your training differently throughout the year relative to your competition season. Baseline testing, we'll talk about why it's important and how you might go about it. And then I promised you 2 special ingredients to improve athlete performance. So those are the things we're going to talk about. We're going to start off with a little bit of a question. So I know lots of reasons why, and you probably know lots of reasons why it's important to train off skates for derby. So I'd like to hear from the people in the room what your top reason is. Just give me one reason that it's important for your team or yourself or your skaters to cross train. So I will give people a second to enter some stuff in the chat. And I'll use this opportunity to mention that there is a non-zero chance that my phone will ring and the courier will be here and I will have to press buttons and let them in through my intercom. So deepest apologies if that does happen, but I've prepared a video interlude for you in case that it does. All right, I saw some people typing and I'm waiting to see answers pop up. Okay, good. Jay has given me 1, 2, 3, 3 options. So preventing injuries is excellent. Get stronger and faster and quicker on the track and being healthy. Yeah, thanks, Jay. Anybody else have any suggestions for me? I don't see anyone typing. Okay. Well, we'll move on. I will tell you some of my top reasons. The first reason is one of the same ones. Oh, determination I got from Cal. Thank you. Yeah, determination. Interesting. So kind of like grit, right? Like if you are training your body to persevere through challenges in your off-skate training, then your body and your mind are ready to persevere and be determined in a gameplay situation for sure. So my number one reason for cross training is to reduce injuries. Um, if you can be the team that shows up to the most important game of your season with 15 healthy people and 5 healthy people skate up to the line for every jam, then you're going to be doing better than the team that is kind of limping their way to the game, right? With everyone's got some bandage, some heat pack on something, some KT tape everywhere, and you're sort of struggling, oh, well, this person's injured, but we don't have any other options, so we're going to jam them anyway or whatever, right? So reducing injuries is obviously important for your skaters, for their health, but it's also a great way to win more games. My second one is to have fewer penalties. So, and this comes back to injuries as well in a little bit, which is that just when you're tired, when you're fatigued, then you're more likely to commit sort of sloppy errors. So whether it's playing, like from an injury standpoint, let's say you are playing in the last quarter of the game with the same physical intensity that you were in the first quarter of the game and expecting the same of your body, but your body has fatigued, has like depleted its resources, then you're going to be subjecting yourself to potential injury. Likewise, on the penalty front, when we're tired in the last half of the game or last quarter of the game, that is when we're getting lazy cut penalties, when our brain is shutting down and we're getting, split tap penalties because we weren't paying attention, the lazy elbow, just kind of not playing as crisply as we can. So it's a conditioning thing, right? So if we're better conditioned, then we're better able to play at the end of the game with the same fitness and finesse as we did at the beginning of the game. So those are my first two. So I'm going to put those up there and see if I forgot anything. Oh, reducing left-right imbalances and chronic injuries. So if we can strengthen and do things outside of derby that are supportive to the muscles that really take a lot of a beating at practice and in games, then that will help us. So yeah, stay out of the box, talked about that. So then my next two reasons, 3 reasons, math's hard, is actually kind of reflected differently for different levels of skaters. So new skaters, you've probably all seen this if you've been coaching and you've coached any newer skaters or even people who are kind of at that house team level or further who just don't have a big athletic background. You'll see people who frankly have trouble standing on one foot in their shoes, trying to achieve advanced level skating skills and drills in their skates and struggling to do it. So if we can give our newest skaters the basics of foundational strength and stability, core strength, hip stabilization, ability to transfer their weight fully from one side to the other, suddenly they're going to be getting those crossovers, they're going to be able to do lateral movement, they're going to be able to do so much more than they would with so much more power behind it. And it's going to make it more fun for them because they are going to achieve their basic skills faster than they would otherwise. And they're going to enjoy themselves more. The next group of people is the maybe almost at any level, but more kind of your house team skater, your people who've been there for a year or more on up. And you're going to have some skaters who hit a plateau, right? So maybe they see themselves as a better skater. They have all the commitment, but their skill level is actually just not quite there. And then that becomes very, what's what I'm looking for, discouraging for them, right? So we want to find ways to keep those skaters in the game. So if we can give them some improved fitness, suddenly, and I hear this all the time with my skaters in roller derby athletics, is people say, oh, my coach noticed that I'm so much stronger after this 6-week training program I've been going through. Or my teammates just said that they don't want to skate against me because I hit too hard now, or whatever it is, right? And so this kind of feedback that they get, the results they get on the track from their efforts off the track, is immensely gratifying to them, and it really helps people to stay connected, to stay, to keep, like just to keep advancing, right? Like that's what's fun for them, and they start to get more roster spots or more track time, and they start to get leveled up to that team that they've been hoping to get up to. This piece is really important, and I think often overlooked because we're focused on our advanced level skaters or we're focused on our beginners. But those house team skaters that maybe they know, or they're never going to make it onto the all-star travel team, or maybe they don't want to. Those people are so important to keep around in your league, because those are the people that run for the board and do the work and stick around and create the culture of the league. So you want to keep those people engaged. You don't want to let them flame out because they never kind of get any better, and then it stops being fun because they don't get enough track time and all that kind of stuff. All right. So in the number 5, I call it the price of admission. So if you are a travel team training at the high level, trying to play in that, WFTDA top 40, 50 kind of grouping, then it's not something that's going to differentiate your team from other teams. It's absolutely the basic price of admission. It's what you need to do to even stay current, stay even, right? So every team that's in the top, I don't know, let's say 30, absolutely has a cross-training program that they're working through together. So I'm only seeing a few people on the chat right now, but I'm going to try to do a poll or a survey. So there may not be a ton of answers, but I'd like you to, I'm going to put this up. I'd like you to let me know what type of skaters you coach, and you can choose all that apply, right? So if you are coaching beginners and house team, go ahead and pick both. So I'll give you a second for that. Okay. Cool. So we've got everyone who's voted does coach some beginner skaters. Oh, the numbers are changing. Ooh, this is so fun. Okay, so we've got a little bit of everything, but looks like maybe a few more beginner skaters and house teams, and fewer people coaching the high ranked team, or the competitive team. So good to know. I'll leave that open for a second, and I'm going to go back to the presentation. And where am I? Oh, right. All of the reasons why it's good to cross-train are kind of pointed towards winning more games. So hopefully that's a good incentive for people. Okay, we're going to move on into talking about the training pyramid. So this is kind of, it's the principle of you have to walk before you can run. So the bottom of the pyramid is where you need to start to build a skater space, and then you get to add the sexier, more fun stuff as you build that. So the power and the agility, and then right at the top in this little, I don't know if you all can see my cursor. Can you see my cursor? Or is that just me like pointing for my own interest? Someone will type in there if they can see my cursor. So up at the top, the accuracy, timing, hand-eye coordination, etc. That is like, the apex jump, like skating into the back of the pack, changing in direction, taking off inbounds, making the jump, landing inbounds on the other side, and carrying on. So that's, the pinnacle, right? That's the sexy, fun, exciting thing. And what people want to do is they want to jump straight to that. But they don't necessarily have the strength and stability piece. So we do need to start at the bottom of the training pyramid and kind of work our skaters up from there. And if you have any questions as I go along, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and I'm keeping an eye over there. And I know that so is Hydra. So we'll try to get your questions answered as we go. All right. So let's talk about this training period a little bit more. So really the bottom of the pyramid here, the strength and stability, it really kind of gets split up into two levels, with stability being the primary, the first one. So the type of training that this would be high repetitions and low loads. So muscle endurance, creating the endurance that your body needs, whether it's core stabilization or your strength of your legs to keep striding, et cetera, to stay in a derby stance. So it's high repetition, low load, usually body weight. And after this presentation, I have a more fuller version of this presentation, this PowerPoint that you're seeing, that I'm happy to share with you, that shows some examples of some of the exercises that you might do for each of these stages. So this is kind of the stuff that maybe a lot of you are kind of doing in your warm-up sometimes, but squats, building up to one leg squats, planks, bridges, building up to one leg bridges, if you know what those are. So these are the things that we need to do for particularly people who are coming into the game that don't have a big athletic background. Maybe their bodies aren't really used to doing a lot of the types of movements we're going to do in Derby. And so you want to give people that good foundation. And then moving into strength, and this is a little bit more geared towards, or the next part that I'm going to talk about is a little more geared towards maybe your more athletic or your higher level skaters. If we want to get specific about how we do strength training, then in theory there are three kind of sub layers to that layer, that strata in the training pyramid. So the first strength one, as I listed there, is muscle endurance or strength endurance. So it's going to be lower intensity, higher repetitions with moderate rest. And then, as you can see, it kind of goes from there. So strength 2 is hypertrophy. And then maximal strength is the third one. So a good example or analogy that I have for this is that if you think of strength training kind of like a cookie jar. So power and agility and apex jump, those are cookies. What we want to do is we want to build a really fantastic cookie jar to put those cookies inside. So I know I just started talking about cookies, so everyone's getting excited and hungry. So when we are doing the second layer of strength there, hypertrophy, that's a fancy way of saying building muscle size. So I saw your question, Jay. I will get back to you. So hypertrophy, fancy way of saying building more muscles. So when you're working on hypertrophy, building bigger muscles, you are building a bigger cookie jar that you're going to be able to put more cookies into. When you are working on the third phase of strength training, which is maximal strength, that is when you are working on reinforcing the walls of your cookie jar to make it super strong, so that when you put all of your awesome power and agility cookies inside, the walls of your cookie jar don't collapse because they're so full of goodness. Does that make sense to people? I hope that analogy is helpful. So basically, a lot of your skaters, especially at your higher level, or your stammers, or your people like, yeah, rah, I'm into it. I'm into cross training. I want to go. They want to work on number 3 and 4. They want to work on power and agility so much. But we have to encourage people to do the strength training piece so that they have the muscle strength, the stability, the muscle endurance to be able to safely do those other higher level skills. So Jay asked, when talking about rest, are we talking about days or during practice? So that's a great question. So on the strength thing there that you're seeing on my screen, and I think I'm putting up a cursor. Let me see, have I got it? Pointer. Now can you see my cursor? Anyway, those rests are actually between exercises or between sets of exercise. So this does apply to your training at practice as well. Oh, good, you can see when I'm moving the clicker now, perfect. But let's just talk about off-skate training for the moment. So if I'm in this strength 1 phase of endurance strength training, this moderate rest is going to be like 30 30 to 90 seconds of rest between a set of 20 squats with not a lot of weight, or, step ups or something like that. Okay, so I might do 3 sets or 2 sets or something of 20 or 30 reps of something, and then rest 30 to 60 seconds. The hypertrophy phase, it's and this is getting fairly detailed, and don't worry too much about the details. We can definitely circle back to it, or I can answer questions about this stuff afterwards. But this would be high intensity, so I'm lifting a weight that's really heavy, a lower rep like something like in the 8 to 12 range, and then a short rep like in the 30 to 60 seconds range, and doing maybe 3 or 4 sets. And then in the third phase, which is the maximal strength, then I'm going to be doing maximum intensity, like as heavy as I can lift, for low reps like 3 to 5 or 1 to 5, and then long reps like 3 minutes between sets. Okay, so in terms of planning out your training during your season, we'll talk more about the periodization and how that's going to affect how you plan practice during your on-skate training. But I'll come back to that because there is some correlation. So you can plan drills so that you're doing stuff at super high intensity, like game intensity, but then you want to give your skaters quite a bit of rest between, let's say, drills, or like, a 2-on-1, it goes for 20 seconds and then you stop and then you all rest. That's a thing. Okay, so once your basic strength is there, core control, you can manage a one-leg squat without the skater's knee caving into the interior. Then you can start to add those sexier skills at the higher end of the training period. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn my pointer off. Maybe there we go. All right. Just going to say, I'm going to go back and look at my questions and see if we finished our survey. Here we go. Okay. I think it's important to use all of the fun little tricks on this webinar survey. Cool. All right. So I'm definitely going to make sure that I answer a lot about beginner skaters as much as I can as we go through this. I've been talking about the results, but maybe you haven't been able to see the results. I'm not 100% sure. I just said share results. So maybe that's up on the screen now for everybody. Okay. I'm going to go back to my presentation. All right. Okay, so we are moving up the pyramid to power and agility. So power training is traditionally done through jumping type exercises. You may have heard the term plyometrics. That is, it's from, I guess, the Latin to bend, the fold. So, you're bending your knees and then you're exploding out of that position. So I think the term plyometrics often gets misapplied to kind of mean a lot of different types of exercise. So for example, even though it's kind of jumping or hopping, I wouldn't consider jumping jacks to be plyometric. A box jump is plyometric. So it's like a big explosive movement that starts with a big deep bend. And particularly if that bend happens quicker than slower, but not always. So I'm talking in circles, sorry. There are exceptions to that. But plyometric, think of it as an explosive movement. So I say ballistic here as well because it's not necessarily jumping. You can do plyometric exercises for your upper body. So let's say like a clapping push-up. And you can also do, if you've got skaters who have knee or ankle troubles and they really have trouble doing jumping, if they can get into a fitness facility and work even just a couple of times with a trainer who is who's skilled at instructing on lifting techniques, then there are some weightlifting lifts that people can use that can replicate the power development of jumping without actually doing the jumping. So things like cleans or hang cleans and snatch and even like kettlebell swings. Okay, so then the fourth one, agility, that's working on footwork, quick changes of direction, speed, so quickness, so changing direction quickly, short sprints, things like that. Any questions so far? Oh, what about cardio? So that's a question that I usually get during this presentation, which is like, okay, well, we've talked about all these other things, but you know, either A, my skaters need way better cardio, or B, but I thought working out was all about cardio, et cetera. So my answer to this is, you know, it's definitely going to depend on the team and the team's needs. So we're going to come back and talk about baseline testing and understanding who your skaters are and where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. But if you are at a higher level team, then your training, your on-skate training should be providing them with a fair bit of healthy training for your heart, but also kind of sport-specific interval-style training, making them work hard, making them sweat, making them be out of breath. And that should provide most, if not all, of the training that your skaters require if they're coming to practice 2 to 3 times a week. Or we might look at that in hours a week that they're at practice, depending on whether practices are, you know, an hour and a half long or 3 hours long. If you're talking about your jammers, then your jammers probably, they're probably the type of people that want to do a little bit more cardio a lot of the time, but also they may need to do more in order to feel good when they're jamming. So that's going to depend a little bit on the person. For our beginner skaters, again, a lot of times the drills that we're doing in practice are taxing them enough just by doing their pace lines or doing their you know, pairs blocking drills or footwork drills or whatever. They're getting their heart rate elevated and is providing a benefit from a health perspective. If people need extra work, let's say someone cannot pass their laps because they're out of breath, not because their legs are tired, or if you've got a team, sort of house team level or whatever, and you can just see that they're getting tired and sloppy at the end of their games and they need to work on their conditioning, then absolutely. I like to say that the best workout to give to an athlete is the workout that they're actually going to do. So it's going to depend a little bit on the athlete and what their likes are. I usually give people a lot of high intensity interval training, not a lot, but I frequently will give people high intensity interval training workouts with my programs that I give at Will It or Be Athletic, because they are pretty bite-sized, manageable, and you can also kind of get the cross benefit of, if we're using body weight exercises like squats and squat jumps and push-ups and things like that in our high intensity intervals, then we're getting the extra strength and muscle endurance benefit of that as well. But if people are kind of more interested in just like going to a gym and plugging in on a machine and just putting some time in, then I highly suggest the bike, a spin bike. If you look at the kind of Olympic medalists who medal in both the Summer and the Winter Olympics over the years, most of them are speed skaters and cyclists. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, and it's a good crossover sport with a similar kind of elements of power, low leg power in cycling. So rowing ergometers are also a really great one, but you want to make sure that your athletes are getting proper instruction on how to use the rower properly. When used improperly, it can be at best just totally ineffective, and at worst can be really the source of back problems. So that's just something to be careful of if you're counseling your skaters to go out to the gym and get on a machine. It is important to do different types of cardio training, so we shouldn't only do high intensity interval training. It's good to mix in some steady state cardio. So what I mean by steady state is like a long, ideally 40 plus minute session at a relatively low heart rate, so around 65 to 70% of a skater's max heart rate. And it's just low and slow, and it's just like put on a podcast and kind of bang it out. And it's not going to be that hard, but it's kind of like if you think of it as an exercise for your heart muscle. So you're working on that muscle endurance and building your cookie jar of your heart, making your heart bigger so that it can handle the interval training. So a little bit of a mix. Does anyone have any questions about, I'm typing, I'm trying to type a question. Does anyone have questions? Question mark. I think if you're in Europe, then it's probably very late at night for you. So you're kind of just listening in quietly. Jay is typing. I got people typing. Okay. Oh, here's what I just talked about. All right. What are your thoughts on having exercise equipment at the practice facility? And question, if 40 minutes on one level gets easy, shall I do it longer or on a higher level? Good question. So I think the answer is going to be in your heart rate on that one, on the second question, Jay. So you will keep turning up the dial to maintain that 65 to 70% max heart rate. And then you can also go longer. So, you can do those for 60, 70 minutes. No problem. Good question. Okay, so then about having exercise equipment at the practice facility. So we're going to talk about compliance a little bit in a moment. I'm going to check my time. Yeah, good. And so having the gear at the practice facility where people can do it all in one place is definitely a great way to build habits. Like we'll talk a little bit about compliance and what are the elements that help in a minute. But yeah, absolutely. If you have your practice facility and it's always there for you, building a culture that supports cross training is absolutely fantastic. And then it's just a matter of like figuring out the budget and figuring out what kind of gear you want to invest in as a league. So yeah, I'd say a spin bike is expensive, like $1,000, but maybe you can get a used one. But I would definitely choose a spin bike over a typical like cardio, gym machine treadmill bike, if you get my drift, because they don't really mimic the actual cycling as well. So, but yeah, and we can definitely talk about what would be good equipment to invest in. All right. So we're going to move on to the next section of the talk, which is about how to plan your training across the year. This might be a little bit less meaningful to people that are training with mostly training beginners, because your focus with beginners is you're just trying to get them up and running. You're trying to get them to pass their minimums, learn their basic skills, and onto a team. And if you're working with house teams, then your biggest challenge is probably trying to support skaters at different skill levels, right? Your veterans and your fresh meat, and just kind of getting people to do the minimum amount of training. But I think sometimes that if you, as a coach, provide a framework for what it is you're asking your skaters to do, and indeed if there is kind of an end goal or even like phases that are made known to them ahead of time, then people can get on board a little easier with the training plan that you are asking them to commit to, because they can see that it's part of a bigger picture. They can see that they're not going to be doing the same workout or series of 3 workouts like forevermore, that there's like a start and end point to it. So periodization is kind of the practice of adjusting how you're training through different parts of your competitive season so that you can be optimally fit, let's say. You can be at your best, you can be peaking when it comes time to have your most important game of the year. All right? So with your team, maybe you just pop up into the chat if you have an off season. Let me know if your teams or your league actually has an off season, as they don't always. Not really, says Jay. a bouting season, a training season, and 1 month completely off. Cool. And an off month, not really a season. Okay, fair enough. Even in the most like professional sports, typically the off season might only be 3 months, but the off season is typically very busy, a busy period of training. You may have heard the quote, what is it? It's like every sport has their time of year when it's championship time or whatever. So if it's the WFCA, then it's like champions are crowned in November, but champions are built in January, something like that, right? So your off season is the time to build and reinforce your cookie jar that I talked about earlier. All right. So if you've only got a month for off season, then your first 2 weeks from your last game should be kind of really focused on a lot of rest, recuperation, yoga, stretching, getting massages if you can, going to see your chiropractor, going to see the village of people that help keep your skaters healthy throughout the year, to kind of work through all those chronic things that start to kind of add up and compound on each other throughout your busy training season. And then, consider your first couple of months back or whatever, assuming that you don't have games like all through that time, consider that kind of like an off-season / preseason. So let's pretend that, let's just use like a WFCA schedule. If you're an A+ WFCA team and you're working your way towards playoffs in October. So let's say that you don't make it to champs. And so let's say that October, November are kind of off for you. You come back in December and your games start up in March. So October, November are going to be that off season. The first bit of off season is going to be totally on recovery, and then you're going to come back and start working on your strength. Once you get into preseason where you're back with your team and you're training, then you're going to want to start adding in the power element to it. And then once you're playing games every month or more often, I know even a lot of house teams play a lot of games, you wind up with tournaments and things happening, then that's the time to really be on maintenance. So what this means is that if your whole team kind of shits the bed during the off-season, preseason part of things, then there's not a lot there to maintain. And they're kind of working to, they're playing catch up during their competitive season. And, we've all seen this. I'm sure you've seen it. I know I've seen it. It's like you get that jammer or person who's kind of missed a bunch of practices, and then they're like, oh my God, I feel terrible on the track during games. I biffed it during that last game. I was totally drained. Now I'm going to go to the gym. And so they've kind of missed their primo opportunity to do that. So ideally, as coaches, we want to plan as far ahead as we can, and we want to kind of identify these, even if it's a 3-month block, or even if it's a 2 month or 1 month, whatever we can. And like I said before, when the skaters have an understanding of the big picture and they understand that what they're being asked to do fits into this bigger picture. And if you want to just talk about cookies so that you get people's attention, just talk about how you're building your cookie jar so that they can have all the apex jumps during their competitive season. Questions on this? This is kind of a very broad strokes overview of the concept of periodization, but and you may have questions or need help determining, well, what does that mean? What does it look like to tell my skaters to train for strength, for example? And I can chat with you afterwards, or we can start a chat in the Facebook group afterwards to talk and show some examples of that. But big picture, this is the broad strokes of it. All right, where am I in my presentation? Here we go. Okay, so let's talk about a week. One rest day. Make sure that your skaters are taking a day off. Now, most of us, okay, so my dad's a dentist, and he says his funny joke that he tells his patients is like, now I want you to limit your flossing, okay? I don't want you to go overboard with flossing, only once a day. So I feel like working out for some of your skaters is going to be kind of like that. Like, okay, don't overdo it. I only want you to work out 6 days a week. But make sure you will have skaters who want to do everything and they're so motivated and they're kind of like cardio bunnies or whatever, those like energizer bunnies, and they're so dedicated and they just want to be the best. And so you need to curb those people and or you need to make sure that your people are planning accordingly, so that if you've got practice 3 days a week or you've got 2 practices in a game, but then you have a certain number of workouts, you've got 3 workouts that you want everyone on your team to do or whatever it is, then you need to encourage planning so that your skaters get at least 1 day off. It could be active rest. So active rest could be an easy yoga class, not a power yoga class, like a hatha yoga or a yin yoga type of thing. Or it could be, someone who cycles to work or something, they cycle every day, then that's kind of like active rest or a walk or whatever. But 1 rest day. You want to help your skaters to figure out when their hardest workout should happen, the hardest workout of the week, based on what you plan to do at practice. So let's say you have 2 practices. I mean, it might not matter. If you're coaching a beginner, kind of a rookie team or a fresh meat group, every practice has kind of a similar tone to it. You don't necessarily have like this day is strategy day and this day is drills and scrimmage day or something like that. But if you can, or if that's something that you have in your league or your team is kind of practice focuses, then you want to help them be able to plan around that so that they don't do like a huge box jump workout the day that you're planning to do like suicide drills or something at practice, like skate sprints all day. Spell it out for best results. So this is me saying to you that some skaters are self-directed, and those are the people that you probably don't have to worry about because they're probably the people that are working out already. For everybody else, where it's a little bit of pulling teeth, or to put 2 dental references on one slide, you're going to have better success with compliance if you just make it dead easy and say, here's the 3 workouts, do them every week until I tell you to change the workout, right? So if you can give people a calendar and say, here's a calendar. If you need to change it, change it. But if you don't want to think about it, just do it and just put workout A on Monday and workout B on Tuesday and practice Thursday and workout B Friday and rest Saturday and practice Sunday, whatever it is. Just spell it out for people and just let them follow it. And the people who know what they're doing or who want to modify it to move it around for themselves. All right. And then how to plan your workout. So this is something that's really important to me because I see well-intentioned captains and coaches and stuff not always doing a great job of this when I observe what people are doing with their warm-ups or their practices or whatever, or their off-skate practices. So pick a focus for your workout and tell your skaters what the focus is if you're sending them off to do workouts on their own. So this is an agility workout, okay? If it's an agility workout, I don't want you necessarily to also make it a cardio workout. So here's what I mean by that. I'm going to use plyometrics because it's a better example. So plyometrics is a power workout. It's a very explosive movement, as I said before. And the goal of plyometric exercise is to build fast twitch muscle strength or muscle fibers, I guess, to allow you to have those fast explosive movements. So this is really good stuff for a roller derby player to have. If I do 1,000 box jumps in a row with no rest, my first box jump probably looks pretty hot, but my 227th box jump probably looks like shit. And I'm just into fatigue now. I'm just into I'm doing kind of garbage reps. And I've turned it into a cardio workout because I'm just going through this cycle, up, down, up, down, up, down. For a plyometric workout to be effective, I want my athlete to have the best possible form and execution on every rep. So a plyometric workout is going to look like do 6 amazing box jumps. You might even rest 4 or 5 or 6 seconds in between each one, then rest for 3 minutes, and then go back and do it again and do 5 sets of that or something. And in the meantime, I might give people an upper body exercise or something not too intense to do in between while they're kind of killing time resting their legs, just to keep them occupied and kind of make the best use of time. But I'm not sending people out there to do a high intensity interval training workout when my goal for them is to improve their plyometric results, like, and to improve their power, their jumping. Does that make sense to folks? So same thing with agility, which is what I kind of started with. It's like, if I want people to work on their fast footwork and I'm giving them like speed ladder drills, then I want people to do a really amazing tight, crisp speed ladder and then rest for 30 seconds and then do it again. Their heart rate's going to go up. They're going to be working, but I'm not there to give them a cardio workout. We can use those same exercises to give people a cardio workout, but let's just be planful about it. And so, pointing people in the right direction of intensity, rest, etc., is important. So I think my next slide has, so a dynamic warm-up. I've got some examples there, and you're going to get these slides afterwards so you can check those out. Stability, so I like to build in, so even though I said that the stability and strength piece was at the bottom of that training pyramid, if you remember from a few slides back, it doesn't go away. Like, it's not something that we can stop practicing once we've gotten past that level of the pyramid. So it's always good to feed some back in. So I like to, even if it's 1 minute of like one stability exercise, and we give people a list of 5 to choose from and just throw it into the beginning of every workout, that's a great way to make sure that it happens. Okay, and I say also for injury prevention and awesomeness making, because continuing to make sure that our stability is on point is going to help those skaters with that, leveling up and avoiding injuries. So then number 3 is the meat of the workout. So whatever it is you've identified as the focus of the workout. And then of course you're going to do cool down and flexibility training. And I like to say flexibility training instead of stretching, because we are competitive people by nature, most of us in roller derby, and to me, like, stretching sounds like a chore, but flexibility training sounds like something goal-oriented. Or like saying, competitive yoga. So flexibility training is an important piece of the puzzle for your athletes. Questions about planning your year, your week, or your workout? I'll pause here for a second and do a time check. Okay, good. I see some folks typing in the pause. Always feels like nobody loves stretching. I know. That's why I used to say, like, all right, everybody, time for some competitive yoga. Jay asked, how long would you recommend one practice to be? Are you talking about practice, like on skates practice, or are you talking about a workout? Off skates. Okay. So it is going to depend. It's going to depend on the level of your team. I think I already said once before, the best workout to prescribe to an athlete is the workout that they're actually going to do. So I would say broad strokes, broad rule of thumb, if you've got fresh meat type skaters or skaters coming, back to your home team after the break or whatever, I would say that like a daily 10-minute kind of thing could be absolutely like a game changer for them. I have a program at Roller Derby Athletics called Basics Builder that a lot of people have done, and it's free, and I don't mean to be giving a sales pitch, but it's literally 8 minutes of just some basic moves, and you can like kind of get up, roll out of bed, and do them every morning. And it's going to kind of build in stability and a little bit of strength, some squats, some push-ups, some core type stuff, just kind of a mix of things. If you are doing, so for like a high intensity interval training type of workout where you're there to work on your conditioning, then those should not be longer than about 20 minutes because they should be, if they're longer than that, then they're not doing what they're intended. We talked about in the intent of a workout, because a high intensity interval training workout needs to be high intensity. So if it's going for 25 minutes, then you're not able to maintain high intensity, so it's not as effective. And then we talked about the like steady state workouts which should be longer. A strength workout for your athletes who are into going to the gym and lifting weights, that can definitely end up getting longer just because you know, you usually do multiple sets and reps of things. So those can stretch into like kind of hour and 20-minute range. But if, you know, if a skater's like, well, I'm going to try to work out on my lunch break, what should I do? Like, that's totally possible. Like 45 minutes of, particularly if you're doing body weight strength stuff at your lower level athletes or an athlete that doesn't come back to the gym, then you can do a lot with a 40-minute strength focused workout. Plyo and agility and that kind of stuff is going to be short. So like 30 minutes top to bottom, including warm up and cool down. Because again, you can't achieve a quality rep after you've been doing it for too long. All right, hopefully that answered you, Jay. There's no like one single answer, but lots of answers depending on what type of workout, what type of skater. All right, and that's a good question. I'm sure other people are kind of wondering about that. So moving on. Okay, baseline training. So does anybody do baseline testing? So do you do any kind of, so we all do, I think, usually minimum skills type testing for our on-skate skills. Does anybody do off-skate skills testing? So interested to hear. The good news is that my delivery person has not rung my bell yet, so that's positive. Nope, no off-skate training. They're all lazy. We have your test posted to the wall with a notebook so people can test on their own. Okay, that's awesome, Cal. Thank you for letting me know. So it's going to be definitely a lot easier to do baseline testing with a team as opposed to a league. So like a smaller group of people who have a common goal. And it can be a challenging piece to communicate to people because particularly female athletes are more, I'm not going to use the right words here, and this is definitely a generalization, but this is like true psychology. Women don't like the idea of being tested and being compared to their peers as much as men necessarily do. So it can be a bit of a challenge. There's always a lot of stuff to overcome in terms of why are we testing? What's the result of the test going to do? Is this going to mean I don't get to play, et cetera, et cetera? So it's really important to communicate the purpose of the test properly. And like I said, it's going to work best for a group of people that agrees at the beginning of the season that their goal is X. Their goal is to win your league house team round robin championship. So here's where we want to be. Here's how we're going to get there. So the baseline testing is going to allow two things. It's going to allow the skater to see their own progress, which is rewarding. It's going to allow the coach to see where individuals are weaker and where they're strong, and where the team is weak as a group and where they're strong. And so then that way, obviously, you can focus your energy appropriately. So that's, trying to execute a plan without the kind of information you need is challenging as a coach. So this gives you the information that you need. It gives your skaters the information that they need. And it could be motivating for some people to see, oh man, I really didn't do so hot on that test. I really want to improve on this. Or for your real competitive types, it's going to be motivating to be like, I want to just do better than I did, right? Or I want to beat that other person. So it helps you establish a starting point. It helps you evaluate progress. It helps you identify areas for extra focus. And then the last point that I've written there is model and reward good behavior. So one thing that I like to use for this is an example is, so you retest every, let's say, 3 months. You don't want to really do, like 6 weeks would be the minimum because you can't really generate that much improvement necessarily over 6 weeks. 3 months is a good, 2 to 3 months is a good interval. One of the best ways that you can use this test is to communicate after you've done the test and you've collected everyone's results and stuff. It's up to you as a team whether you share all the results or whether you just share them with the individuals and share their own results versus the averages. But let's say so-and-so improved on every metric in the test over her previous test. Amazing. Also turns out that she's getting a lot of playtime and she's playing really well. Okay, fantastic. Now's a great opportunity for you as a coach to say, hey, I'm posting up everyone's results or blah, blah, blah. I'm sending you individually the results. I just want to give a shout out to Betty Blammer. She did so great on her test, and I really feel like that's been reflected in her play. She won the MVP at the game last weekend, and it's really like her hard work on her off-skate training is really paying off for her, right? So that's a bit of a like over-the-top example, but I've done this, like I've seen it, and it's easy to see when you're looking at the test results, and it's easy to correlate the skaters that are improving their fitness and who are improving more than others or doing well, doing better than others on the track. So tying on-track performance and results back to people's test results and their effort and commitment to their off-skate training helps with compliance. So I've queued up my own slides so well. Compliance, how do you do it? How do you get, if you have any strategies or things that you use as a team or as a coach to work, to have people track or do team-based fitness stuff, please go ahead and type it into the chat box while I chat here. There's a bunch of different tools that we can use. People, I've been on teams that use Google Sheets and they ask, skaters to just like track their workouts. I've had teams do competitions where they set their own goal. Every skater sets their own goals for miles run or minutes worked out or, kilometers on a bike or something like that. And then people are tracking and then they're rewarding and doing fun prizes for the people that are doing well. Liberty Athletics does have a team training capacity, so we have like we can set up a teams with a group training plan where everyone has the same training scheduled for themselves, and then everyone's in like a group chat and they can kind of like encourage each other and share sweaty selfies and stuff like that in a group. Making off-skate training part of league culture is a really great way to when everyone's doing it, then people are like, oh, I guess that's what everyone does. I guess I should do it, right? So incorporating off-skate warm-ups and coach-led cool-downs and stretches, competitive yoga, before and after practice is a great way of, like, when you make it part of the plan and not something that someone has to add in or request, then that helps with compliance. I think I'm getting short on time. Is that right? Oh, yeah. Reinforcing the why regularly. So we talked about those reasons why it's important that we're all cross-training and communicating that regularly to your team. Stickers and gold stars still work even for adults. So if it's as silly as a poster board with names and rows and like gold stars when people work out. And like I said before, making note of people's improvement on the track and correlating that back to their off-skate training. 80-20, that's the 80-20 rule. 20% of your people are just never going to get on board and they're going to be on the struggle bus with this the whole time. I would say just like live with that fact, like take that on board and know that that's going to be how it is, and focus your energy on the 80% that are gonna get somewhere with it, right? Quick question here. Oh, we have a separate group to motivate each other and share when we are going to the gym or for motivation. That's great. Yeah, perfect. So making that part of the team culture is great. Taking away some on-skate time in order to add some off-skate. It really depends on the team's goals, the team's strengths and weaknesses, how much your practice space costs, how much practice time you have. Every league that I've been with, we either show up early to do our off-skate warm-up, or we have such a long practice time that we do our off-skate warm-up at the beginning of our track time. But yeah, I think it's pretty important, and it is part of like creating that culture of being healthy and taking care of your body and working on your stability moves. Let's see. Oh, my 2 secrets. Okay, I'm super quick because I know Hydra's anxious to get me to wrap it up here. Only the skater can control these two things. They're free, they are very effective, and they almost never happen, even though all of the three things are true. Rest and recovery. So lots of studies will show that an athlete will perform much better. Like the difference that you can achieve from training versus the difference results you can achieve by showing up well rested are, I forgot how I started the sentence. You get more benefit from the rest piece. So if nothing else, if the option is to get up at 6 a.m. the week before a game every day so that you can fit in all the workouts that you missed, or just rest and show up really well rested and feeling great on game day, the rest and the recovery piece is actually more effective. And then applied visualization techniques. So there may or may not be another session in this online summit about visualization, but there's a few websites or posts on my website about this by Jeff Bandit. So I have some resources for you on that, but it's something skaters can do in their free time off skates and great results from. That was a lot of information. I'm going to send you slides. Don't panic. And you can contact me. And this will be in your slide as well. So you can reach out with questions anytime. And if you want to take some questions from this offline, or not offline, but put them into the Facebook group, I'll be back online tomorrow, and I'll jump in there and we can keep the conversation going. All right, Hydra, I think I've reached the end. I've got Jay typing. Thanks everyone for joining for this. I hope you got something out of it. I'm sorry it's getting dark in here now. It's all of 4 p.m. in BC, 4:30, so it gets dark here pretty early where I live. Thank you all for being here. I hope you really enjoy the rest of the summit and get a lot out of it. And I do hope that you'll shoot me an email if you have any more questions.